Welcome back. I am Sarah with Sky Messages by Sora, and last week we did the tarot review of the Dark Grimoire Tarot. As such, we are going to use it for our pick-a-pile this week. The pick-a-piles are where I ask you to, like it says, pick a pile. I will have 3 piles of 3 cards, and then I will do readings for each. I will put the times in the description, so once you've decided which pile you are called to, you can head right over. While I'm shuffling, I'd like to thank you for liking and subscribing, sharing, and whatever else you do to help. It really does help, and I really do appreciate it. For a reading, to book a personal reading, please go ahead to my website or email me. I specialize in the past life readings, but I do also have mini readings, and if there is something you don't see, feel free to email me and ask. I can't guarantee it, but I am capable of more readings than just what you will see on there. For videos like this 2 days early, for bonus content, the secret menu, discounts, monthly live streams, anything like that, please head over to the Patreon, and we are ready to get started. So we have pile number 1, pile number 2, and pile number 3. I ask you to take a deep breath and feel free to pause it if you need to. I am going to go ahead to the first pile. Come back when you have made your choice. Pile number 1, we have Strength, the Emperor, and the 6 of Cups. I would like to point out that, as I mentioned in the deck review, Strength here is 11. That is because it is not a Rider-Waite deck. But also with Strength, we are not looking at strength in terms of physical strength or physical prowess. We are talking about strength of character, sticking to your guns in terms of your values, your ethics, your morals, and making sure that you are acting in a way that feels right to you. This often comes up in work situations. It comes up in all kinds of situations, but often it comes up in work situations where someone who's been around longer may have ways of shortcuts or doing things that aren't exactly things that make you comfortable. If you are uncomfortable, there are different ways to deal with it. This card really asks you to go along with your own moral compass, not to worry about theirs, because maybe they have different values, or maybe they have the same values and they slid into temptation. It doesn't mean that you have to. The reason it comes up, I think, the most with work situations is because those are the hardest to get out of in a lot of ways. You know, you need your job. If it is something bigger where you feel like if you don't do something that doesn't fit your values, if you don't do this thing, then you are risking losing something, then it may just be time to start looking for a way out of that situation or for a new situation. If it is work, it might be time to put out resumes. I will never tell you to leave a job if you don't have one already lined up. The tarot doesn't always care about that. Because again, it doesn't live in the world we do. You know, it's got the far more bigger aspect, the bigger spiritual things to deal with, whereas we have to work it within the day-to-day. So in terms of situations that you don't feel like you can leave, but do not sit right with you morally, it may be time to start looking elsewhere. If you can navigate these situations without feeling you get pulled into a bad direction, then you can keep going. This isn't about them. Again, it's about you. We have that with the Emperor. Now, the Emperor is a card of leadership, of taking action, of stepping into your confidence, and having others follow you. He's charismatic. He is he's a leader because of his experience. So he pulls people in and urges them to follow. These two cards together are really interesting because it does speak to maybe those adjustments not being about leaving, but about rallying people together to make the situation better. Instead of getting out of one situation for another, maybe turning it into a more beneficial situation for yourself and others, making it a more comfortable place to be, helping others out of that same situation, working together. And finally, we have that with the Six of Cups. Now, the Six of Cups is a card of nostalgia and often comes up when we have to take roles of leadership because it kind of makes us feel like we'd rather go to the good old days or the days when we were younger and we didn't have so much responsibility. In her case, she's looking out and missing the way her town was before the old gods started ruining everything. And that can show up that way. The thing about nostalgia is you can absolutely use it to look back, see how you built that foundation, use it in a way that you can benefit without getting stuck in the past, without not being able to move forward. You can appreciate the foundation and then leave it there. The only thing that I worry about, or that I give as a caution with the Six of Cups, is getting caught up in this dream world of trying to make your life the way it used to be. Especially with the Emperor, we let that information from our past drive us forward. Always stepping into what can you make your life now instead of trying to go back. So you've got a lot on your plate this week. Good luck. I'm going to move into our second reading. Pile number 2. We have the Nine of Pentacles, the Ten of Pentacles, and the stars here. So the 9s and 10s in the tarot are both endings. With the 9s, we are learning, we have all of our equipment, we have all of our tools and materials, and we're ready to start applying it. With the 10, we're already applying it and we're actually moving into the next cycle. So the 10s are endings, but in the way that they directly go into beginnings, whereas the 9 are kind of more solid endings. The Nine of Pentacles speaks to wish fulfillment, goal achievement, getting to what you have been working for. And when we look, the Pentacles have always been known as finances, or always, they're very commonly known as the suit of finances, but they are also material items. They are things you can grasp and measure. I always throw time and energy in because they are resources. They are things that we need and don't always have enough of. So when we see this, this is generally reaching a point of stability within one resource. Often it's financial stability, but it doesn't have to be. It's getting to a point where you have the things you need. And then having that with the 10, which says you have so many resources that you can start sharing, you can give to the community, you can put things out there. It asks what you're going to do with that. Now, the Ten of Pentacles speaks to legacy in a number of ways. It speaks to inheritance, which isn't always about money. It's not always about everything you've gotten. It's about what you're going to do with what you've got. Inheriting, can also speak to genetics. It can speak to situations. It's not always getting a sum of money. It is about dealing with the things that have come to you, and that can be generational, or that can be if you have taken over a position at your place of employment, having to inherit whatever the person before you left behind. So it's about what are you going to do with what you've been given. And to have that with the stars, which is the card of hope, it is the card of hope specifically after disaster. It's the card of new things coming in when the old ones have been cleared out. This really speaks to getting to a place in your life where you can start really making a change and knowing what you want to do with that. How do you want to be perceived, and how do you want to recreate your world? I would say the world, but really we're focusing on the reach you have. What can you do with that? What would you like to do with that? And start thinking about if you could make things look the way you want them to. What would that be like? Now, with the Ten of Pentacles, that's going to involve some work. Because, again, you may have the things, but using them in the way that you need to get what you want will take some thought, could take some investment. Again, we're talking about resources. It doesn't have to be money. It can be time and energy, but it's kind of, what situation were you given? How would you like it to look? And what do you need to do to get there? So a lot on your plate. It is asking a lot, but it is, again, very hopeful. I mean, it tells you that whatever you're not happy with in your situation, you're in a better position to change. You're able to put yourself in a better position so that you can then put those who inherit from you in a better position as well. So good luck. I'm moving into pile number 3, our third and final reading. We have the Queen of Swords, the Knight of Swords, and the Seven of Swords. A lot of swords energy generally means a lot of being up in our head energy. A lot of readers really hate the swords because they see them as like pain and rough situations. And it is true that they are life's difficult lessons. But they are also temporary. And they are also, to me, the suit with the most healing potential, because they are temporary, because we are looking at it, we are dealing with things, we are processing things. We're not just running to the next thing. We're not feeling it without letting that process and fill. We are doing it. We also do have 2 of these as court cards, which changes the sword's energy a little bit and stops being life's lessons and more about communication, problem solving, because the great thing is once you've been through the ace through 10, you can start applying those. You've gathered up all of those lessons, so you can use it to prevent further rough situations and to do new things. So with the Queen, we have this idea of taking a step back, being objective. Now, she is a queen, so we do have that emotional aspect. She is very much the balance between head and heart, while being a little bit more on the heart side. As such, she can sometimes come off as cold, because she is kind of allowing her rationale, her logic, and the things that she works to balance out those emotions, she can let them lead the way. But really she tends to be more on the emotional side. And she is guarded. And I think that's where that idea of feeling cold comes from. She is very careful about who she shares things with. She tries to make sure that those she is giving pieces of herself, information about herself to, are worthy. And she sort of asks that you do the same. She's not asking you to be cold. She's just asking you not to be so open that you get taken advantage of. We have her with the Knight of Swords. The Knight is very philosophical. He is always going for the truth, searching for the truth. With the Knights, we have that chivalrous aspect where they have a duty to uphold. They are loyal. And to have that with that swords, that creative processing, that communication, and that idea of finding the answers, we have someone who's very dedicated to finding answers. To have these together, you kind of have her always observing, maybe being careful how much she shares, but also taking everything in, and with the Knight using that to go forward, to push, to really start to look for the answers. And as much as we see this as a very air energy, there is something very fiery about trying to find life's answers. So there is that idea of trying to find ourselves and our identity, which is a big, deep ask. There have been a lot of pressure in these readings today. But we wrap that up with the Seven of Swords. Now, the Seven of Swords is one of those swords cards that has a much worse reputation than it should. And that is partly because one of its meanings is winning at all costs, and as such, it is associated with a lot of bad behavior. And that's true, but it's also a card about strategy and applying strategy. See, by the Seven, we have had quite a bit of heartbreak and false starts and choices that didn't go the way we wanted them to, and we're gathering up those lessons, and we're trying not to make the same mistakes. And I think that's where a lot of that negative stuff comes from. They're trying not to make the same mistakes, so they're making new mistakes. But for me, especially where he's fallen asleep at the book, where he's like reviewed his journal and he's like, how do I do this right this time? For me, it's just about thinking ahead. At least here, we've got the observation and the struggle for the truth. This is not to rush into anything. This asks you this week to set your strategies long-term instead of short-term, and then start to make the small steps so that you don't run into those false starts again. You don't run into those impossible decisions or that heartache that you have to heal from. It's just asking you to take some time and use what you've learned to set yourself up for something better. So I know seeing that many swords can be hard sometimes, but honestly, it should be a fairly uplifting message this week. It should be a pretty good week. You should have a lot more answers at the end. Good luck.